Hello and welcome to the Energy Connect Studio at COP28. I'm delighted to be joined by Serge Colle, Global Energy Resource Leader at EY. Serge, thank you so much for joining me.
It's a pleasure to be here, thank you.
Now, you recently just launched your new Energy Transition Accelerator report. Can you tell me a bit more about it and some maybe the key findings?
Yeah, excellent. So I'll do that. So the way that we took it, because obviously there's a lot of reporting going on, a lot of studies being done by different organizations. But the way that we try to be differentiating is actually we looked at the energy transition to the lens of the customer, really thinking about their applications, which currently are very much carbon heavy in general, but also considering the alternative and then thinking about, what would make a customer switch and how quickly can we see them switching. Yeah, and then obviously you very quickly get into the debate of, what is the cost of the alternative, as in clean tech. So we've watched over 50 different clean tech technologies, thinking about economical viability, thinking about adoption rates, but of course being stuck very quickly also on the question, what would it take for those customers to switch potentially in advance of the, I would say, the expiration of the lifetime of the assets, as in, are you happy to walk away from a perfectly functioning coal plant or a perfectly functioning car to move into something else?
That's interesting. And anyway, the report sort of showed that the energy transition was maybe accelerating faster than expected. Is there any areas?
Yeah, so there is some good news in there. There's unfortunately also some bad news. I think listen, I think the good news is that in any case we are seeing very strong acceleration on a number of technologies. The obvious ones being, of course, renewables as well as EVs. I think the forecasts that we're making are certainly more bullish than what you will see in general being out there.
Okay.
And that of course has a big impact. The downside is that it's not nearly going fast enough. Last year we had about 30% growth, for instance, on renewables in terms of installed capacity, but actually we would rather need about 300% growth, right? So if we want to triple I would say the installed base of renewables by 2030, which is what we need, we probably need to add about 1,000 gigawatt every single year, as opposed to 300-400. Yeah.
That's interesting, and we've heard that about not fast enough. What needs to be done, or does the report look at ways or suggestions or scenarios to speed it up?
Yeah, once again, so we are, I would say, convinced that for things to go faster, they need to be not just better but also cheaper for the customer.
Okay.
We certainly have always customers that are early adopters because they're really concerned about climate and they have the capital to deploy, or they love the tech. You also have those, or a combination of those. But the reality is, for the I would say the larger base, of customers, it just needs to be better and cheaper. And that is, by the way, the same also true. It is also true for industrial customers, as an example. The way that we see it, there's at least 4 key elements, I would say, that we need to work on, and the sort of broader categories. I think on the one hand, there's still very big supply chain issues. If we look at the scale of things that needs to be built, and we've had recent examples, for instance, around the offshore wind industry. But it's very clear that a new supply chain ecosystem, industrial base needs to be installed, which is then well functioning and fit for purpose, and also fit for the volumes that need to be deployed. So that is, I think, a very big concern. So the way that I would frame it is that we need to have a reliable, decarbonized supply chain, right, for that equipment. But that also goes back to minerals, of course, right? So think about the batteries, but also about green steel, green cement. So I think that is the first one. The second one, we need to make it better for investors. And that is a really key one. We're looking at trillions of capital that have to be deployed on an annual basis, is where we need to move to. So we need to have better returns, and we need more predictability, I think, first and foremost. And this is all the way down from, setting targets, but also policy frameworks, but ultimately also permitting, as an example. So the role of government here cannot be underestimated or understated, I would say. The third category that I would call out, in any case, is everything related to cables, right? As in, grid infrastructure. To be honest, it's been a bit quiet around grids, relatively speaking. If you look at where we are right now, I think let's say the TSOs and the DSOs, and forgive the lingo, but so the transmission companies and the distribution companies, I think have done really well in already connecting a lot of renewable capacity, I would say, to their grids. But we are increasingly seeing, of course, very large congestions already popping up. And that is at this point in time, I mean, the outlook is not that great. And there's really need, I would say, for a lot of connection, but also a lot of interconnection. So grids and infrastructure, I think, is a very, very big point there. And then perhaps the last one to call out is I would say, again, is back to the consumer, right? I mean, we need this to be working for all consumers, global north, global south as well, right? The problem that we have with this new energy system is that it's all about, a lot of upfront capital deployment, right? And afterwards, a very sort of cheap, I would say, operating cost in general. Of course, I mean, the sun shines for free, as well as the wind blows for free. But the reality is that, this early capital deployment, and then for them to move away into something which is newer and better, I think is a key thing. Also, by the way, in this decentralized energy system, consumers will have to be able to, also participate into the energy system. And again, we're not necessarily set up for that.
No, we're not. And I mean, all those points you've highlighted there, sort of a big focus here, I think, in different elements on different days at COP28. And, what's the importance now? COP is every year now. How's your experience so far? We've still got, a week or so to go, but I'd like to hear your thoughts of how COP28's gone. There's been quite a few milestones announced as well.
Yeah.
We're not there yet. We haven't had the final communique, but I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm really waiting, if you will, up until the last day, I'm guessing, to see what really sort of comes out of it. I think it's been exciting, of course, to see, I would say, first observation. I mean, this is massive, right? And the participation of the broader ecosystem, I think, for me, is like the biggest difference, right? And I take that as a positive. I think there's incredible energy, also from the broader business community, but not just business, to try and participate and, explore ways to really add to, I would say, the acceleration that we all require. I think in terms of, there's been some early announcements on the oil and gas side, but not just there. There's been some controversy, as always. But I do hope, so let me maybe rather than sort of think about the observation then, the hope that I would express would be much more around, I think we need very tangible shorter term objectives. Yeah. So I think we sort of know where we need to head. I think the stock taking is incredibly important. Perhaps we waited a bit too long to do that. So I think whatever the outcome, I think we need to have that clarity. But the hope that I would have is that we have clear commitments about, clear targets that we want to be realizing by 2030, as opposed to 40 or 50.
Yeah. Great. Well, Serge, I appreciate you giving me your insights and observations. And just want to say thanks for coming down to the Energy Connect studio.
Right, excellent. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks everyone for watching, and I look forward to bringing you more studio interviews from COP28 soon.